In an exclusive interview with Euronews, former US Vice President and founder of the Climate Reality Project, Al Gore, said a reform of the UN Climate Summit is necessary in order to speed up climate action. The phase out of fossil fuels is essential for limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees, but it is paradoxically the second year in a row that the conference is held in a fossil fuel dependent country.
I think the process should be reformed. I think it's absurd to have, for example, what we had last year with the CEO of one of the dirtiest oil companies on the planet serving as the president of the COP. It's a direct conflict of interest. And while the president of this COP is not the head of an oil industry, he is very much in sync with this country's reliance on fossil fuels.
Al Gore noticed that while people are growing increasingly concerned over the climate crisis, he says the fossil fuel industry continues to promote falsehoods about it.
People are growing more concerned, but at the same time, the fossil fuel industry, which has an interest in suppressing concern about the climate crisis because they don't want to reduce the amount of fossil fuel they're burning. They've been very active in trying to hold back the measures that have to be taken in order to solve this.
But the former US Vice President said that the fossil fuel industry is losing some of its major markets, such as through the advancement of renewable energy generation and the rising popularity of electric vehicles. Al Gore also believes the younger generation come in with much stronger opinions about solving the climate crisis.
Scientists have been telling us for a long time, and the fact that they were right in what they said years ago should make all of us pay more attention to what they're saying now. This could destroy the future of humanity if we don't take bold action.
Al Gore is hopeful and said he believes in humanity's ability to rise to the challenge, but that action is urgently needed.
The EU could see inflation rates fall by over 50% next year amid a modest economic rebound and record low unemployment. This is according to a European Commission 2025 forecast published on Friday. The report, however, warned the bloc is especially vulnerable to rising protectionism.
A possible protectionist turn in US trade policy would be extremely harmful for both economies. And the Commission will work with the incoming US administration to advance a strong transatlantic agenda and ensure that international trade channels remain open while making them more secure.
According to the report, EU households are still prudently saving rather than spending amid recent shocks. With fears the Trump presidency may impose tariffs of 10% on imports from places such as the EU, officials in Brussels say the potential for further flare-ups in global trade is still worrying.
Diplomatic incident at the opening of COP29 in Azerbaijan. The host country's president, Ilham Aliyev, sparked anger in Paris by denouncing what he called the crimes of the Macron regime in the overseas territories during his speech. Shortly after, the French Minister of Ecological Transition announced that she would not attend COP29. The rising tensions between the two sides are partly fueled by France's support for Armenia, which is in territorial conflict with its Azerbaijani neighbor of Nagorno-Karabakh.
These tensions are political to a large extent, and it's an attempt of kind of retaliation from the side of Azerbaijan to France because of their exceptional support and important support to Armenia. France has supported Armenia diplomatically, also financially, but also militarily, and especially in their fight with Nagorno-Karabakh, this conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which has been also in recent years hotspots in the South Caucasus.
Baku is accused of backing separatists in New Caledonia, where riots in May claimed 13 lives. A constitutional bill aimed at amending the electoral system had already sparked tensions in the French archipelago. Adding fuel to the fire, Paris has also accused Azerbaijan of meddling in internal affairs and using the independence movements to destabilize France.
D'abord, il y a une ingérence qui est politique. Il y a ce qu'on appelle le groupe d'initiative de Bakou, qui a été créé en juillet 2023 et qui continue de prospérer encore aujourd'hui, qui est un groupe de pression et de lobbying au niveau international, qui participe à partager et à relayer et à faire caisse de résonance aux velléités d'indépendance de certains groupes indépendantistes.
According to a Vigilant report, Surveillance and Protection Against Foreign Digital Interference Service, Azerbaijan has also conducted disinformation campaigns targeting France on social networks. Despite ongoing trade and gas contracts between Baku and the EU, tensions show no sign of easing.
A series of heavy Israeli airstrikes hit Lebanon's capital of Beirut on Friday, one of which leveled an entire building in one of the city's southern suburbs. Rescue workers were seen operating at the site of the strike. There were no immediate reports of casualties, but the bomb hit a lower level of the building, turning much of it to rubble. Israel said it was targeting Hezbollah facilities after issuing evacuation warnings prior to the airstrikes. Such Israeli airstrikes have leveled hundreds of buildings and homes over the past 8 weeks, destroying thousands of housing units. The World Bank estimated that Lebanon has been hit by over 8 billion euros in physical damages and economic losses from 13 months of the Israel-Hezbollah war. Israel has also been striking deeper inside Lebanon since September as it escalates the war against Hezbollah.
Protesters gathered in a suburb north of Paris on Thursday, just 2 kilometers away from the stadium where the controversial France versus Israel football match was held. Many protesters were angry. French President Emmanuel Macron and other prominent politicians were present at the game.
On pleure tous les jours. Tous les jours, moi, le soir, je me promène avec les chansons palestiniennes dans mes oreilles et je pleure pour tous ces gens qui sont massacrés. Et qu'est-ce qu'il fait notre président? Il vient en soutien à l'équipe israélienne. Mais c'est quand même dingue.
Le gouvernement est en train de nous montrer qu'il se rend complice de manière délibérée des atrocités commises par le gouvernement israélien et l'histoire se souviendra.
The rally was held the same day a special UN committee likened Israel's methods of warfare in Gaza to genocide.
Le match France-Israël est un scandale. Ce que fait Israël, l'État d'Israël, c'est un génocide. Et on est là pour le dire en fait. Et on va pas se taire en fait.
Heavy police presence, including drones and helicopters, prevented any major protests or fights close to the stadium. France did not want to take any chances after violent clashes erupted between Israeli football fans and pro-Palestinian supporters in Amsterdam last week.
Dozens of drivers were parked in the middle of the street in front of the Uber offices in the European Parliament in Brussels. They're protesting against rising commissions and competition from other rideshare apps and traditional taxis. According to Shah Sayed, a street cab driver, the current commission of 25% is going up a further 10%.
C'est catastrophique. Franchement, c'est vraiment catastrophique. En tout cas, moi personnellement, c'est que je gagne la moitié de ce que je gagnais avant.
Cutting further into their incomes, ride-hailing drivers are being forced to switch to electric vehicles by January 2025.
Les politiques à reporter dans 2 ans cette électrification parce qu'on n'est pas prêt. Il n'y a pas les bornes de recharge et autres. Et même les moyens, on ne les a pas. Vu qu'on se plaint de la rentabilité, on ne va pas déjà venir nous imposer des véhicules qui coûtent 50 à 70 000 euros.
The association is calling on the parliament to improve regulation of the sector, specifically in capping the commissions. Traditional taxi drivers also took part in the demonstration and expressed frustration over working conditions and wages as a result of unfair competition from ride-sharing apps.
Web Summit moved from Dublin to Lisbon in 2016, and the Portuguese capital is a winning bet.
A lot of tech journalists criticised the move. They thought Web Summit should have gone to a serious European tech capital, and apparently Lisbon was very unserious, a destination for backpackers and stag parties. Over the last 9 years, Lisbon is transformed. Web Summit, I would say, has played some role in that.
O CEO e cofundador da Web Summit esteve ausente da edição do ano passado. Regressou em 2024 e com um aumento recorde das receitas de 30%. A ideia é que o evento fique em Lisboa para além de 2028, quando termina o contrato, mas para isso o recinto aqui no Parque das Nações terá de crescer.
We're using every available space. You'll notice that this year we've got tables outside and chairs, which works if the weather works. Web Summit fits beautifully with Lisbon, and I hope we can, stay here forever.
Whether it stays in Lisbon or not, Web Summit has left its mark on Portugal's tech sector.
O investimento anual em startups em Portugal andava na ordem de 50 milhões por ano. Em 2021 chegámos a um recorde de 1.500 milhões de euros investidos em startups. Portanto, é um crescimento absolutamente extraordinário. Neste momento, Portugal e Lisboa são conhecidos como uns dos principais hubs de empreendedorismo na Europa.
Mais de 300 startups portuguesas mostraram-se ao mundo nos últimos 3 dias. E não é só Lisboa que ganha destaque no setor tecnológico nacional. Na Web Summit deste ano, Braga foi eleita a cidade europeia mais inovadora. João Azevedo, Euronews, Lisboa.